And at the end of the movie, he's forgiven What's his name? What's Creed's name? Adonis.
Yeah.
I said Adonis, and then I was like, wait.
Donut.
A donut. Yeah. Forgives a donut.
Forgives a donut.
So we challenged each other to watch the Creed trilogy.
Yeah.
Longtime Rocky fan.
I've seen Rocky once.
Yeah, but like you
Rocky
talk about
4.
Rocky a lot.
No, Rocky's cool. Yeah.
And you did that monologue.
He's so funny. I haven't seen that movie either. That's Rocky Balboa.
Oh, it
It's
is?
the last one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
It's really good. Like the scene, and
Yeah.
I've done that monologue many times because I love it, but I haven't seen the movie.
Oh, nice. I haven't seen any Rocky movie.
Mm-hmm.
I've only seen Creed. And then you were like,
Yeah.
what if we watch Creed? And I was like, oh, yeah. The Creed 3's coming out. I've seen the first I saw the first Creed in theaters.
Oh, in theaters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I saw it with a friend of mine at the time. And we were like the only two people in the theater.
Was it like opening, like later, like when was it?
I think it was later. I think it was towards the end of its theatrical run.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We saw it at one of those movie places where you eat.
Mm-hmm.
And
Movie tavern or something.
yeah. And I remember I didn't get any food. I just got like the bottomless Slurpee. Well, I did have a blue raspberry Slurpee.
Blue raspberry.
I probably had like 3 during the first Creed.
Like a large?
Just whatever size they gave you.
Just whatever.
I mean, it was pretty big.
Yeah.
But I was also like, I think I was like 14 when the movie came out. So, you know.
Wow.
It was, yeah, my metabolism was through the roof. I saw the trailers for Creed, and I was like, I'm not going to see that.
Yeah.
Looks cool, though.
Mm-hmm.
I like Michael B. Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever my friend was like, we should go see a movie, and like Creed was the only thing interesting that was showing, I was like, I should kind of read about what that movie's about. So I didn't walk in and just not know anything.
Yeah.
And so then I had watched the scene of like Apollo Creed dying in Rocky 4.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is going to be interesting. And so I
Yeah.
kind of knew a little bit going into it from what I'd researched. And I enjoyed it. I was like, yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
I didn't expect them to make a second one. So I remember when the advertisements for the second one came out, I was kind of like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it. When I saw the advertisements for Creed 3,
Yeah.
I did feel a little different. I was like, it's got Jonathan Majors, one.
Yep.
And it looks like, well, you know, Rocky's not going to be in it. And I was like, it looks like it is just kind of going to be its own thing. I was like, and then whenever you expressed interest, I was like, oh, then yeah, I'm for sure going to see it.
Yeah.
But for Creed 1, that one is the strongest of the trilogy.
Yeah,
sure.
because
Yeah.
I had never seen any of the Creed movies before now.
What do you think of Creed 1?
I can't think of any reason why any of the others are stronger than Creed 1.
Yeah.
It's still well, I'm saying still the best, like I've seen it before, but like I think like I watched Creed 1, 2, and 3 like in order, and it's remained the best so far. And they've actually just kind of continued to like just lose some of the flair and magic, like only by hairs though. They're all still 3 really good and well-made movies that I'm gonna love watching again and learning more from. So to be clear, like I think Creed 3's the weakest, but it's the weakest out of a really, really good trilogy. Rocky's connection to the franchise and Sylvester Stallone in particular. Just because I've seen Rocky, I saw bits and pieces of the other movies, and then I always use that same monologue from Rocky Balboa that I loved when I was acting. I think I just had a lot of nostalgia and connection to that franchise, even though I've only seen one movie. And I have to be honest, like just Creed 1 and 2, having him there, it was so magical. All the movies, like if they didn't have Sylvester Stallone, like were pretty good movies. But 1 and 2, having him there alongside it and his connections and him going through things as well, like just elevated it to being like great movies for me.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean I wanted him in 3. They wrapped him up in 2. It would have been a little shoehorned if he was in 3, and I also love that this franchise is really stepping away and becoming its own thing. Like I really liked 3 for that reason. It is very different, and I just hope they keep making them for a while.
There
you
are
know?
plans for a fourth one.
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
I just want them to keep making them in this new style and like kind of come into their own. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is pretty simple storytelling, and you know but there's just something raw about Sylvester Stallone's performance in 1 and 2, and Rocky as a character, especially seeing where they were and where they are now, and like having to wrap things up before it's too late. Like I don't know, that was just really, really hitting me.
The movies they have so much heart to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like whenever you get like spin-offs or spiritual successors to
Mm-hmm.
popular franchises, most of the time they really hinge themselves on nostalgia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And-
especially lately in the last 10 years. Yeah.
And I never really got that much from the Creed movies. Like there's some,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the second one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I never felt like that was the point of their story. Yeah, it feels like they just really wanted to expand on this new character, and like Rocky, he never feels like the main character,
Yeah.
or he never. One of the things I hate a lot, like what a lot of movies that are bringing back old characters do, is they try and weaken the older characters
Yeah.
to make the new main character seem better. And
Mhm.
they definitely didn't do that with Rocky. He is in a mentor type role,
Yeah.
and he's not like, he's not weak. He's not used up or anything. He might portray himself as that
Mm-hmm.
to be like to keep himself out from getting back into the whole
Yeah.
boxing world.
Mm-hmm.
But the writers aren't doing that as a way to elevate Creed's character.
Okay. Yeah.
Like Michael B. Jordan's character is fantastic on his own. He doesn't need
Mm-hmm.
to be better than Rocky, right? It's his own thing. So I really appreciate that. I think they're just they're smart written movies. They're written to expand upon the franchise in a very smart way.
Yeah.
And I think they do it well. They do it really well.
Really well.
Even with what I described as like the hard like left turn in Creed 3.
Yeah.
To where it does feel very different. That is my second favorite though. Creed 2 is my least favorite
Yeah.
out of the 3. Because I did like that change of pace a lot.
Yeah.
I thought that was a fantastic story. It's got its quirky moments, a little goofy.
Yeah.
One thing that I think the Creed movies have over the Rocky movies
Uh-huh.
are the fights.
Yeah. Probably.
The fights are amazing from what I've seen of the Rocky movies.
Yeah.
A lot of the Creed fights are done almost like in one shot.
Oh yeah, like that in the first movie.
Is that I don't remember. Is it the final fight or is it that first fight that he does? That's one shot. Are they both one shot?
The first time he fights and Rocky's his trainer.
Yeah,
That's the one shot.
they did that
Super
like
awesome.
was it? I read that they had to do that like 13 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't really feel like a one shot. Like, look at me, I'm really cool at directing. It was like it was really nice because it just put you in. You had no time to breathe or to the passing of time was in real time.
Yeah.
Like as far as the movie's concerned, and so it was Creed's first fight, Adonis's first fight, right? First fight, like really trying to figure himself out, and the first time he really had like a male figure in his life supporting him. So, it was like the whole scene, like building up to it. He's like, "Cut me out! I really gotta use the restroom," and he's like,
That's like
freaking
my
out.
favorite scene.
I loved that so much, and I think all of that buildup is what made that long shot really, really work, because you were empathizing with him and like seeing his struggle and that he is scared and that he's still figuring things out. He's just doing this because he doesn't even know why yet. Like you find out later in the movie and throughout the sequential movies, but I don't know. The
If you
one shot
didn't,
felt
I was
really
gonna
good.
bring up that scene where he wants to be cut out
Yeah.
because
it.
that's my favorite.
And then in the second movie, when they're speaking in sign language,
Yeah.
she's like, "Yo, you shit."
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
That was funny. Let's try and like,
Keep it in order.
yeah, let's just kind of say everything we want to say about one.
Yeah. The soundtrack is great.
Yeah, it's freaking Ludwig again, right?
Yeah.
Mandalorian, Black Panther, worked with Childish Gambino. Anyway.
Fight scenes are good. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I really like the love story.
Mm-hmm.
They fit so much in the movie, and it just skyrocketed Michael B. Jordan as an actor.
That is, I mean, we got to say on one. We'll
Mm-hmm.
talk about it in 3 though. But their chemistry and their love story is really awesome because it's I don't know. I don't even know. It's just good. I
Yeah.
just like.
Yeah.
I love that storyline of focusing on her and the music career
Yep.
and like, you know, what you want versus what you can do because life happens to you. That was pretty cool. What did you like about the first one?
I like the pacing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they subtly allude to like the Rocky franchise
Mhm.
with like some of the like they don't ever play like the Rocky theme
Mhm.
verbatim.
Yeah.
His training scene is really good. I like the story just
Mhm.
a lot.
What
I
about-
think that has the best story out of the 3
Yeah.
for sure.
Hmm.
It's very close to 3 though. I
Yeah, it is, yeah.
really like 3's story.
Yeah.
But the first one, they just nailed everything when it comes to like revamping a franchise, and I feel like they did a great job of just getting people excited again for
Mhm. Yeah.
it. They used Rocky's character just the right amount.
Yeah.
They didn't use him. I didn't think they overused him.
Mm-hmm.
They kept it. It's really down to earth,
Yeah.
and it's a great watch.
Yeah, with the training scene, I love that in both movies they're like chasing chickens. That's like one of my favorite parts of the training that they do. I think both Rocky with his trainer and Adonis with Rocky, like they both just see it as like really silly and stupid, but it kind of like breaks down them taking themselves so seriously.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like having to be better than a chicken. I think the reason Creed 1 is still my favorite, gosh, it's such a good movie. The reason it's still my favorite out of all of them is because it was very, very strong on its own.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
also,
that's why I was surprised whenever I saw like
Yeah.
that they're making a second one. I was like, I feel like
Yeah.
it wrapped things up really well.
Yeah, it was
But-
very strong on its own, but it Creed 1 just continues to kind of get elevated by the rest of the stories. Kind of gets wrapped up by the end of Creed 1, but there's like so much left on the table, and that's what
Yeah.
I love about the franchise continuing and discovering like different sides of him. But the main thing that they kind of wrapped up is just like so like beautiful in the ending is that, you know, I mean, just the whole idea of your dad dying in the ring before he can be a father to you. Basically, like, even if he lived through that fight, he might still not have been a father to him.
Mhm.
But he also went into the ring and died in fighting in the thing like that I guess he cared about most, and so that just shows that he didn't care about, you know, nurturing children. He cared about dying as a warrior or whatever more. Obviously, that's gonna make you feel like shit. I don't know, man. Like the whole movie was good, but the thing that just made it really awesome, like my favorite scene in the whole movie, I think, the last fight when he gets knocked, you know, to the canvas, right? Really iconic shot.
Mhm.
And he falls down and he's sitting there in a really awkward, uncompromised position, like just like at his lowest, like and he's hearing people, you know, people that he loves, and like his Rocky, who is like kind of an uncle, father figure to him, his girlfriend, his mom was like watching on the TV, right? Yeah. He's hearing these voices, and then you're playing these scenes from the movie of him growing up, him as a child, like all this stuff, right? And like I love it so much where it's like he's on the ground, he's down, and it cuts to, someone he loves, and then he's still on the ground, and it cuts to Rocky, and he's still on the ground, and it cuts to his dad who he's never met, and he like gets possessed. He like just like shoots back up, right? And it was so cool and awesome that like it was kind of just focusing up on like what this was really about and what was really important to him and what he was really trying to figure out. It had nothing to do with anyone other than himself, and proving that he's not a mistake. It's really just about himself. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not about anyone else. It's not even about his dad, but his dad is the catalyst for him to prove something to himself. You know what I mean? That's the most important thing to him. And when, he gets back up and Rocky goes over to him, and this is like a huge moment for Rocky too, right? Because in Creed, like the thing they keep coming back to is that Rocky didn't stop the fight that killed Apollo, right?
Right.
And he's in the same position, and he really wants to stop it. He doesn't want him to die, like more blood on his hands, especially after like helping him get to this point. And another reason he doesn't want to do it is because, and he says this like in the scene where he's saying, "I'm going to stop it," is that I really wish I had seen all the movies beforehand, because I feel like this would have made a little more sense. But even with the little I know, it's still really, really powerful. Like it's about like two lonely people inspiring each other to continue to fight, right? It's such a simple concept, such a simple message, but it is just so poignant in this movie because of what they go through and how they have to learn it through the only thing they know really well, which is fighting. I don't know. It's really interesting how they're kind of learning how to let people in or how to believe in themselves through something that is about violence. You know what I mean?
Right.
Rocky's training him. Rocky gets cancer. As soon as he gets it, he essentially just gives up in every way. He does it because of all of the baggage connected to that, and just like the weariness he has from his life, as far as his wife dying, and his wife dying from cancer, and that the treatment didn't work, and so he doesn't want to do it. He's at the end of his rope anyway, and he just wants to go out the way he wants to go out. And it really sucks because he was already kind of in the midst of this, but Adonis kind of bullied him enough to get him into trading him, right? And like he gets a glimpse of a reason to keep fighting, like what to hold on for, and it's kind of through family with Adonis, and like because he gets to train him and mentor him. And man, the scene where they're in the locker room and Adonis finds out like through the pamphlet or whatever in his coat, and then man, that scene like was really like wrenched at my heart, because it's one thing for him to kind of give up on his own, like by himself, but then he also like is giving up on Adonis, right? And obviously that's hurting Adonis, and that's also really hurting him because I mean his own father like died and gave up on him, thought he was a mistake, and maybe the same thing is happening. And so they fight about it, and then Rocky, he essentially just says whatever, he just fights him. He says they start fighting, basically he says whatever he thinks Adonis needs to hear to be heard enough to leave him alone. There's just something about his performance, Sylvester Stallone. I don't know what it is, but man, he says that, and Adonis like says something else and runs away, and Rocky is just sitting there like, oh, what'd you do? Like, that was really pulling at my heart, like, because he's smarter than this. You know what I mean? But he's smarter than this, but emotionally and experience-wise, like, he's just stuck here. He's just stuck with fighting and pushing people away and like hatred and regret, and he's, you know what I mean? He knows it isn't fair and it isn't right, to do this to him,
Mm-hmm.
to do this to Adonis, to do this to everybody who's still there that still loves him. He still has a son. And it's not even that it's not fair in the sense of like necessarily he owes it to him, although in actuality, you know, he does owe some things to these people because of him being his son and because of him taking on Adonis as a trainee. And he also owes it to himself to be the best he can be. This is not being the best he can be. Giving up is not the best he can be.
Yeah.
And so that scene, you know, and then onward, like really made the movie special, where it just became about the most predictable thing it can be about, just getting up again. That's all it's about. And it, because when I was younger and I love these movies, it was the same thing. I'm like, yeah, that's really cool. You know, you got to get up every time. But every time you get knocked down in life, this message becomes more poignant. You know what I mean? And so watching it as a teenager versus watching it as, you know, mid-20s, it just keeps getting better and better, more and more poignant, right? And meaning more and more to me about getting up again. And so them inspiring each other to continue to fight in both of their things, like Rocky to continue to live and to continue to live for people to make things right, and then Adonis to continue to fight to prove something, not to the world but to himself, you know. And all of that to say, the scene is just so awesome when Rocky's there, and this is part of him growing. He's trying to be better. He wants to stop the fight. He doesn't want, you know, someone to die. Then Adonis says, "No, don't stop the fight. I have to prove it." What do you have to prove? That I'm not a mistake, and that's what he needs to overcome. That's his personal. That's something that only he can do. No one can tell him that. He knows it. Like, and it's the same with Rocky. He knows that he can be better than this. That he can be a father to his estranged son, and that he can be a great trainer. But he hasn't proved it to himself. And then he does by taking the treatment, by being better, and in this moment he also proves it to himself by kind of letting go of responsibility and letting someone like do something on their own. With Adonis choosing to continue to fight, he lets that go, and he says, obviously, you know, you taught me how to fight again, so I'm gonna let you fight, but only if you're gonna actually fight. Only if you're actually gonna knock the son of a bitch down, right?
Right.
And he does. He doesn't win the fight, but he does knock him down, and he doesn't die. So
Yeah, exactly.
So he overcame like the image he had of him being like worse than his father or whatever there, and just proving to himself that he can accomplish the same things or greater things, and that it wasn't a mistake to have a son, because that son can become better than you if you were to nurture him. And so yeah, and that just gets explored further and further in the rest of the movies, right?
Right.
So yeah, that whole scene, and then they like start to play what's it called?
Gonna Fly Now.
Gonna Fly Now. They start to play it, but they don't actually play it. Yeah.
The first movie does a great job of complimenting both Rocky and Creed.
Yeah.
It's called Creed, but there's a lot in there about Rocky.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it definitely felt kind of split between the two. In Creed, obviously there was more about Adonis if you like really were to tally it up, but they like did so much for Rocky and his character then.
Yeah.
And set him up so well to have like a really beautiful ending in that and Creed 2.
Yeah, and I think it was really smart the way they did it, because the audience is going to see it because it's a continuation of Rocky. So put enough in there that the audience who's a fan of the franchise can see what he's been up to.
Yeah.
And where he's at. but also be introduced to Adonis, this new character.
Yeah.
And so in Creed 2, it focuses, quite a bit still on both of them, but you get a heck of a lot more character development for Adonis. And then, of course, Creed 3, he's not there.
Yeah.
And so they just build upon Adonis in each movie really well.
Yeah.
While not leaving Rocky behind.
Exactly. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you said that. I think you said something about like fans of Rocky coming to see it, and man, I might cry. The thing I learned about, like, as far as like the making of the movie makes like Creed still. It's a huge reason why Creed is my favorite out of all of them, and why I feel it's the strongest is just because of the like the emotional connection that the production side of it had. I don't know if you like read this anywhere or like heard anything about it, but essentially Ryan Coogler, he wrote and directed, right? Well, co-wrote obviously with Sylvester Stallone. So Ryan Coogler, his father and his mother watched Creed movies growing up, right? Man, these movies are freaking old.
Rocky
right?
movies, yeah.
Ryan Coogler's father watched Creed movies, Rocky movies, sorry, with his mother, and so there was that connection, and
That's
then
cool.
that transferred over to Ryan Coogler's father watching Creed,
Rocky movies.
Rocky movies. Ryan Coogler's father watching Rocky movies with him, and so Coogler always had like love and respect for the movies from there, like just like it being a special thing between him and his father, and then it's so sad. His father got an illness, but it's something he had to do a lot of rehab for and whatnot, and it really just destroyed him, like emotionally and mentally, right? So essentially, what that was the inspiration for Creed.
Wow, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
Nope.
Damn. So his father loved Rocky. Rocky was, essentially a god to him, right? It's really cool how, like, mythology-wise, like, back in the day, everyone was, had, Zeus and like all these myriad of gods, and it's kind of transitioned to a lot of people really looking up to just characters and stories. It's kind of like a new mythos, right?
Yeah.
God's age. Anyway, tangent. So he loved Rocky, and he wanted to tell a story of someone new, of someone that himself, Ryan Coogler, and also like people can relate to, but then also give a character, a beautiful character. He did it so well, of someone who's on the other side of like their peak in their life, and who continues to get hit down but gets back up. And so his father watched Rocky do that when Rocky was young, when Rocky was at his peak, like constantly get hit down and then get back up.
Yeah.
But in this movie, you see Rocky at the end get knocked down and get right back up, and through a similar thing, through an illness, through something, not just in the ring, but in your life.
Yeah.
That you have to deal with. I think that's just why the movie feels so coherent and focused and beautiful. No matter what age you're watching it, you're getting something out of it.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
It's freaking... Yeah. I love that movie. I can't wait to watch it again. And I think it worked. I think it really helped his dad. And so that was super awesome.
I feel like that was a perfect way to wrap up the first one.
So I love it as far as like it's really poignant for older people and like people you look up to who are maybe don't have the spark anymore. It'd be such a beautiful movie to show them for that reason. But also just to even wrap it up even more and also transition into the other movies, because to kind of wrap up kind of like what Adonis goes through in it. Rocky. I want to watch all the Rocky movies.
Yeah.
I love how simple and straightforward he explains things. So it's essentially like Adonis just like overcoming everyone else. He's not going to be able to do that until he can overcome himself and what he thinks of himself. And so I love all of those training scenes with Rocky. And my favorite thing is when he makes him shadow box in the mirror. And he says, your toughest opponent is you. And that if you You know, if you can't beat yourself, you can't beat anyone. And it's and that's just what continues to be explored. It perfectly sets up for him to experience things in the next two movies. As far as like in this movie, what he overcomes is more connected to his image he has of himself being a mistake because of his father.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the next movies, it's just different sides of him that he needs to overcome. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so I love that so much. Like, I think I guess this will transition. Anything else you want to say about Creed 1, or
No.
you good to move on to 2?
I'm good to move on to 2.
Well, this transitions really well into one of my favorite parts of Creed 2, which is the very beginning. It's like right on the edge of being a little corny, but it's like, I don't know, it pulls it off. It's really good. It's the very beginning, and Adonis just talked to Bianca. That scene, you know, was funny, and then Rocky comes in. It's like one long take, and I love it. I love how many long takes they have. It's really nice and visceral. Really keeps you in the moment. And Rocky like just kind of comes in real slowly and is like talking to him, and while he's kind of hyping him up in a really like subdued way, and like, you know, they're kind of like they're like throwing punches at each other. Like it's so like sweet. I don't know how else to say it, but the things he's saying is what makes it my favorite scene, where he says, "Why are you fighting? Are you fighting to prove it to other people, or are you fighting to prove it to yourself?" And it just brings up this concept that I've really been engaging with in the last like year or so of my life, comparing yourself to other people. It's kind of like what a lot of institutional things prep us to do, kind of make us do, like comparing ourselves to others. And it's also what we can fall into if we don't manage ourselves and manage our envy or whatnot of other people. Like on social media, you see people and see how I had, like, you can do it to yourself really easily.
Yeah.
Getting stuck into comparing yourself to others, right? But through everything I've been learning, I've just, and it's something I dealt with a lot, like I did a whole lot my whole life, is always compare myself to others, either in a way of which I'm not good enough, or in a way of like which I'm better, why am I not getting this? Both of those are destructive. And a better way to use comparison is comparison of yourself. Rather than getting to a point and looking around and seeing where you are, it's getting to a point and looking at where you were and seeing where you are. So it's essentially you talking to yourself a few years ago. It's really funny. Kind of a tangent, but kind of not. So I was editing an episode. It's actually really funny. I was editing an episode of ours, and it was the one with Good Will Hunting and the Lighthouse?
Yeah.
I think so. But yeah, I was editing that, and I was... it's my favorite movie still, and I was like, I like video essays. What if we made like a video essay about it? And then I like kind of wrote some ideas down, and I was like, this could be cool. And then to get an idea of like kind of like what other people have said and whatnot, I watched a bunch of video essays on Good Will Hunting, and at the end of it, I was comparing myself to them, and I was like, man, all these people said what I already wanted to say.
Yeah.
I'm stupid. They're so far ahead of me. Like, everything I was thinking of, they already did it. I got stuck there for a second. I got really insecure. This was a few like days ago, and I already have this knowledge of that's fruitless. You know, like you compare yourself to someone, and it's like, it's so stupid, because essentially I'll go, that person is better than me, but then someone else is going to say, referring to me, that person's better than me. And it's endless.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Until you get to, I don't know, God, then it doesn't matter. It's stupid. You know what I mean? But I was still engaging with it, and it's really interesting because once I kind of like started to get out of just those emotions, I started to really be able to look at myself and who I used to be. The person I was a while ago would have this idea, but just not do it because they didn't believe in themselves. I'm going to do it, and I do believe in myself, and the only thing that was holding me back was the comparisons of other people. And so I have grown, and I was able to compare myself to who I was, and I have grown. That's just a healthier way to track your progress essentially. And that's kind of just really what they're getting at in that scene with Rocky and Creed.
Yeah.
Rocky and Adonis, where it's like, are you going to prove to everyone through this fight, or are you going to prove to yourself who you are through this fight? And that if you prove it to everyone, everyone's always going to be able to say something about you.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be someone better than you. But are you better than who you were? Because that is something to be proud of. And that is something you can continue to do.
Yep.
I love these movies and how like the fighting aspect like really simplifies it down to just, you know, like being better or not being better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Creed 2. I love it. I
Mm-hmm.
really love it.
Yeah.
What do you think of it?
It's okay. You know, at first I was a little off put that like, oh, it's Apollo Creed's son versus Draco, right?
Yeah.
Draco. Drago's son.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I was kind of put off by that.
Interesting.
Just kind of
Why?
I don't know. Because I felt like the Creed movies don't need to go back to the Rocky movies. They don't need to, because I
Yeah.
feel like they're strong on their own.
Yeah.
I felt like this was going to be kind of cheesy. Just being like,
Yeah.
oh, it's the sons, you know, fighting. Okay. Neither of them were there, but they just have this like emotional resentment towards like the fathers.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was going to be super corny.
Mhm.
It wasn't. It was good.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah.
But that's why like I was put off
Uh-huh.
at first by it.
Like from the story of it.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like, that's not going to be interesting. Because I was so focused on just the fighting.
Yeah.
But as we've talked about for like the past 20 minutes,
Uh-huh.
I mean, we barely talked about fighting. And
The fighting just gives them such a easily understandable way to make metaphors for life. And that I think that's what was so special about Rocky as well. It's really easy to follow. You just, you know, it's just about fighting and getting better and making sure you don't kill yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, you can
Yeah.
apply it to anything in life.
yeah,
Everything's a fight in one way or another. Winning and losing, but often in life, it's not about winning and losing and getting back up again and letting people in because you're stronger with people, but you also need to be strong enough by yourself.
right.
You know what I mean?
Right. What would you say the learning is from Creed 2?
The stuff I loved about it, Drago, and I loved his father, because I hated him. Oh my gosh, I freaking
Yeah.
hated Ivan and Victor, right? Ivan's the father,
Yeah.
Victor's the son. I just think it's so stupid to like kind of put your failures on your children. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And push them and beat them, you know, verbally, emotionally, physically, to succeed where you failed. I can't understand it. And
Yeah.
it made me so mad, right?
Mm-hmm.
The opening of the movie, he hits him to wake him up, like
Yeah.
punches him in the face. Gosh, I was so mad.
Yeah.
And
If that doesn't tell you, like, where the story's going.
yeah. I didn't even realize it until we started talking about it now, but it is just a very dark side reflection of what Apollo could have been to Adonis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize that
Me neither.
until we started talking about it now, and that it makes their inclusion even better and a little more to dig into. But so that makes Victor and Adonis feel a little more connected story-wise now, kind of like looking at it as like the dark version of what Apollo and Adonis could have been, and kind of, you know, what Rocky and Adonis could have been as well. But what I really loved about Ivan getting to interact with Rocky again was we've seen how much Rocky has grown, gotten back up, and won in life with everything he's done, with learning how to fight again and continuing to fight. And we see the exact opposite in Ivan, and how that line is like, it's like the most predictable screenwriting line, but it feels so good in this movie and with everything that's going on, where it's like, I don't know, that was a million years ago, man. And he's like, it was yesterday to me. It's like, so, you know what I mean? It's the most predictable line ever, but it hits really hard because essentially Ivan, what are you laughing at?
I think you should read, like, the Rocky scripts. That's Sylvester Stallone.
That would be so fun.
Adrian.
Ivan is who Rocky was becoming in Creed, right?
Yep.
Rocky's grown and he's trying to tell Ivan, hey, like, stop.
Yep.
This is stupid.
Yep.
And you see what happens when you kind of just live in the past. You get blinded to what's in the present, to what's happening right now, what he's doing to his son. By the ending, I think he realizes it. He stops the fight. He throws it in because he's pushed his son to never stop. And he's made his son just a machine, just a monster. And I think he's realizing that when the people leave and that his glory isn't going to be restored. That's kind of a rough way for him to learn that he's been an abusive father, but at least he does do something about it. By the end of the movie, instead of him being on his son's heels in a car, he's running with his son. And it kind of leaves them off as they're probably going to have an actual less abusive relationship. They're actually going to become father and son and not Ivan and Ivan replacement, you know what I mean? And so that felt really good. I really like that story in the movie a whole lot.
And seeing that, I'm after seeing the first movie when I was really young, and then like seeing it again, I don't know why I thought on the surface a parent kind of hinging on nostalgia, corny storyline was gonna be that. After watching Creed 1, being like, why would they go from like up here to just like drop it so fast, right? I was proven wrong by watching Creed 2, seeing that, okay, they did this really well, actually.
Yeah, not just like, not a cash grab or anything.
No,
like that.
exactly.
Just
That's what
expanding the story.
like when I saw like the trailers, I was like, okay, just continuing to, just Hollywood blockbusters,
Why are we
taking money.
still talking about Rocky or like anything from the Rocky franchise?
Yeah.
I think they just saw the opportunity to continue on the story. And also, I mean, it's really connected to Adonis.
Yeah, like why wouldn't they?
From Ivan killing, Apollo. So there's that connection with the main story.
They could have just taken the easy way out and just wrote a very bland story, right?
Oh yeah,
about
for sure.
Adonis getting closure, revenge for his father's death, right? They could have done that, but they didn't.
Essentially, in this movie, I think to kind of like start talking about like Rocky and Adonis now, the whole point of the movie is actually Adonis trying not to go down that storyline, stopping himself from doing it, and making it about himself again and not about anybody else. Because when you do make it about other people and you do compare yourself to other people, that's where a lot of terrible things can happen. And so this whole movie is just a temptation to make it like about revenge and about his dad and about all these things. And I think that's why Rocky doesn't train him and leaves him, because he thinks he is just going to turn, into like a revenge monster that might end up dying. And he might die a similar death to Apollo, in the sense of like Apollo. I haven't seen the movies enough to make any statements about Apollo's character. You know what I mean? I only know him as just the guy Rocky fought in Rocky 1. But he's in a few movies, you know what I mean? And I don't know what his character goes through. I don't think you necessarily have to have seen the Rocky movies for his presence and what he means to the story to still be really impactful and like make sense. Because at the end of the day, he was just the best. He's kind of just this mythic god figure to everyone. It's really tough, for Adonis to reconcile with that. Still, even though he proved that he gets back up and that he's not a mistake, that he's not weak, and he actually has the potential to be stronger than his father, you know what I mean? Which you kind of got in Creed 1, and he did it for himself and not for his father. I don't know.
I think it is, I mean, you kind of hit it. I think it is mostly about Creed he's a great boxer. He's like the best. And it is about, and he's up against a family that has such an impact on his family. Yeah. And it is, which path is he going to go down? Is he going to stay on the path that he's learned? Or is he going to go down the primal revenge, the dark path? I think I think that's what it's about.
Like being more like them.
Yeah,
Is he going to
exactly.
be more like them, or is he going to be better than them?
And is he gonna like have an opportunity to change them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
At this point, I think he's still overcoming the pressure and the association of Apollo with him. Because in the first movie, he gets, his trunks and it says Creed and Johnson on the back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in the second one, wearing those shorts, but he's kind of just, he's starting to forego Johnson at all and just like step into being Creed, step into being Adonis Creed, and enough of success and enough of a individual and a man to be in the same conversation, not just through association, but through like comparison. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like as far as other people comparing him, not necessarily him comparing himself to his dad, but he's obviously still struggling with that. He still has pride about his father and his legacy and continuing that legacy.
Mm.
That's why he fights him.
Creed 2 is more straightforward.
As far as Rocky's concerned, I love that he actually freaking reconnects with his son.
Yeah.
Man. I'm continually blown away by how impactful this movie is with, like, it's pretty straightforward storytelling, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because Rocky, not having that much time left and just, like, wrapping things up and trying to make things right is really sweet, and like him figuring that out through him going to the gravestones of the people that mattered most to him, that their loss has affected him the most and turned him kind of into what he is and what he doesn't want to be anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like those scenes, it's the most straightforward thing. It's just it's the scene of your character having a heart to heart or like talking to gravestone of someone they loved.
Yeah.
But they have so much heart to them that it just is like you don't feel like it's a movie a lot of the time, or like the tropes of a movie like kind of like being enacted upon as much. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh yeah, duh, here comes the grave talk scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that other movies might feel like, because maybe it feels a little less heart or relatability to it. Because these movies are just so relatable.
Mhm.
Because it's the simplest thing about life and falling down and getting back up again. I love those scenes. They're so sad. When he's just sitting there and talking to his wife, his trainer, and talking about how he just doesn't know what to do. And he
Yeah.
doesn't have anyone that he thinks to talk about it to, and he just has to figure it out all on his own. But he feels like he's just wasted so much time because he's kind of just been down for a long time, you know what I mean? But he's through the things that happens in these movies, he's been able to start to pick himself back up like one last time, to make things right. And so can't remember why Rocky didn't train him, but I think it was because Adonis was just too focused on legacy and other people and not so much on himself.
Yeah.
And where it should be. And I think Rocky was noticing that, and he didn't want to contribute to him stepping backward to that place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which he feels like. And again, I don't want to comment on Apollo until I've seen the other movies, but essentially what could be the comparison between Adonis and Apollo is that maybe the reason Apollo wanted to die in the ring, or just wanted to be Ivan, was more outward focused and not inward focused. Not him looking at himself and him overcoming something, but maybe just his name.
Yeah.
And that he was the best, and that what other people thought of him. And so in that way, Apollo, dying in the ring could have just been the last best PR thing he could do. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Going out that way. And essentially Creed 2 is Adonis just trying not to do that.
Mhm.
But it being hard. Of course it's freaking hard.
Yeah.
Like me, like literally when I was talking about me, trying to think of a video to make or whatever, like I have the knowledge
Mhm.
that comparing yourself to others is fruitless and that you should compare yourself to who you were and who you will be. But it still happens. It just still
Yeah.
comes up. And I think a huge part of that is like conditioning, like a mountain of examples of experiences where you did do that to yourself, where you did compare yourself to other people. Experiences are not the same as knowledge. Knowledge is like just you being able to understand concepts.
Right.
You read it and you learn it, and then you have to experience it for it to become real to you. And so me just knowing that I should compare myself to myself is not the same as me doing the action of comparing myself to myself. And I still had that conditioning. I still had that. I still had my whole life of comparing myself to others. I had a mountain of experience in that direction.
Yeah.
And so when I was like, I'm going to make a video, and I looked at other people and it's like, man, these videos are good. I had that experience to rely on. It was so easy just to go back, and I did go back. And then I had to pull myself out to compare myself to who I was, and now I've placed a stone in the experience that will eventually become the mountain of living the knowledge of comparing yourself to yourself. And
Damn.
I have that mountain. It's still so much taller because it's my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm placing stones, and eventually they are going to be a mountain. And eventually, over the course of my life, it's going to become bigger, and it will become a part of myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what he's going through. In the second one, because he did overcome something. He did compare himself to himself in the first movie. He wasn't a mistake. He proved it to himself that he wasn't a mistake.
Yeah.
But then he slips back to calling out my dad. Well, I'm better than my dad was.
Mm-hmm.
Which is comparing himself to his dad, which is comparing himself to it. And he slips back to it, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And again, the first movie does have a good ending, but like it's no human's that perfect. It's not like he's good for the rest of his life. He's going to keep dealing with it.
Yeah.
And he has to build, because he's lived his whole life comparing himself to others, and he has to build the mountain of evidence to start comparing himself to who he was. And it's going to be taking the rest of these movies to be doing that. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I think is the main thing about Creed 2 story-wise that Adonis is dealing with. I don't know. I don't have as like clear of a analysis on Creed 2. I just loved it.
Yeah.
I really loved it. Obviously,
Good.
the stuff with Ivan and Victor was more clear-cut, and I really liked that. Rocky finally kind of gets to a point where he can die giving his
He can
best.
rest.
You know, he can rest. He's done everything he can do. He can finally compare himself to who he was and realize he's lived the best life he could now,
Mm-hmm.
and that he wasn't before, but now he can because he's comparing himself to who he was. I mean, freaking Adonis. He freaking does it. He wins, and I love that shot when Rocky comes to see the fight. Adonis is like destroyed, but he won.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, Unc," and then he like gives him a fist bump, and he says, "It's your time now."
Mm-hmm.
This movie is so basic.
Yeah.
But it's so beautiful. It's so good.
Yeah.
He says it's your time now because it's like you don't need me anymore. You don't need guidance anymore because you're good enough. You're so strong on your own, and you, as long as you are continuing to do the right thing, to fight yourself, to compare you to yourself and who you were, and continue to overcome yourself and not try and overcome others, you're gonna be the best.
What's the year gap like in terms of
Yeah.
like when they came out? Because when did
Oh, when they came out.
Rocky 2 come out in 2019?
Creed 2 come out in 2019.
Yeah, sorry. It's been like 4 years.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. Some of that is creating the movie, but also some of that is probably just the direction trying to be figured out, as far as like who will be doing what,
Yeah.
and Sylvester Stallone stepping down. A huge reason why Sylvester Stallone was stepping down is because of one of the producers.
That's what, yeah.
on
That's
the
what I
movie,
was saying. Yeah.
And I think that producer just always kind of trying to fight for the rights of Rocky, and Sylvester Stallone always obviously holding on as hard as he could because it was all his. He knew that, and he wouldn't let go of it then, and it's what made it such a success, was that it was all from him. He wrote it, acted in it, you know what I mean?
Yep.
That is such an amazing story. That might be a huge part of why his performance is like, I can't detach his story in reality from Rocky, and how
Mhm.
it's just the same, and how it, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like any way you think about it, it's so admirable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not like the American dream. You know what I mean? It's like the dream. It's like humanity, the indomitable human spirit. You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly.
So it's just even more universal than that. It is very American, obviously, everything about it, but like it feels like an age-old story. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The story he lived, and then the story he wrote. Said I don't know much about like the production side of it.
Yeah, and Sylvester Stallone did say he would come back if that producer wasn't attached to it.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't really know if I would want him to come back.
Yeah.
I feel like he's pretty wrapped up.
I
I
think
would
so,
not
too.
turn it down though, because damn, I just love that character.
Yeah,
you
you
know what I
do.
mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but if they can make it make sense, bring him back.
Yep.
I love that character.
When it comes to Creed 3,
Uh-huh.
it does seem like its own movie compared to the other two.
Yeah.
It is its first step away from Rocky,
Yeah. A big step.
and it's a huge step. And I mean, Creed, he's retired. He's just kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah.
He's done. It's almost like he's gonna train his friend, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't. He gets the trainer to train his friend.
Yeah.
But it's almost like he's seeing himself in Rocky's shoes a bit too early, because he brings up Rocky was an underdog fighting Apollo, and look what happened to that. And so he's seeing Dame could be the next underdog. He could be the next Rocky.
Interesting.
And so I think Adonis is trying to step in those shoes too quickly.
I actually got kind of a different interpretation of Adonis and what he was trying to do.
Well, there's that part,
Uh-huh.
but then if this is also what you were thinking about, how he's just, I think why he's doing that is because he's blinded by guilt.
I think he definitely is blinded by some guilt. I mean, the trainer of the gym says, I know what you're trying to do. You don't owe him anything. I definitely saw that he was like kind of doing everything because he just felt the guilt to do it. But also like there's the connection with him and his family through blood or through name. But then Damien, his family, not through blood, not through name, but through life. They're brothers. They're literally foster brothers. And that's a huge reason why he's doing it. But what was really interesting is like, I don't know. I felt really icky about what he did when he set up the fight. The one guy like broke Ivan's arm or whatever, or the Victor's arm, so Drago couldn't fight the soon-to-be champion, and so he got his friend to do it. And definitely part of that was because of the guilt and because his friend like kind of pushing him and the underdog, right? It also seemed like some of it was that he just thought his friend was going to lose.
Oh yeah.
And he was trying to do the thing for the client.
Yeah.
That's how I felt watching it. I was like, because like when he does win, obviously he wins through fighting dirty and like being very violent, and so like that sucks. But also like how much of Adonis being mad about the outcome of the fight of his friend winning was because of how he fought, and how much of it was because he won at all and that he thought he was going to lose. You know what I mean? And what that might be getting into is that, I don't know, maybe there's like some character flaws there that Adonis has to work on, and that something to do with money, hubris, fame, something like that. And I might be misreading it. It might purely just be he felt guilty and he's like, this is your shot. And if you win, that'd be cool. And if you don't, then financially, this is great for me.
Yeah, that's like where I kind of thought.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was like malicious. Like I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Like you're like yeah. He's definitely gonna lose. He's gonna see that he can't be a professional boxer.
Exactly. Yeah.
What I got out of it was more just like, what, he wants to do this. I'm gonna let him do it. He was really good back in the day. He's older.
And I did this to him.
Yeah.
You
It's like, this is me. I'm just gonna give him his chance.
Yeah.
But my client is really good, and I'm rooting for him.
And then obviously he fights dirty and is like trying to like hurt and like kill the person basically, you know
Which
what
is
I mean?
awesome. That was so cool.
It was so cool, and I think that would justify Adonis's reaction to hating the outcome of it.
Yeah. I couldn't tell what was going to happen at the end. You knew they were going to fight.
Yeah.
That's what the posters are and
Yeah.
everything. I couldn't tell if one of them was going to die.
Yeah.
If this was going to be the end of Creed and his friend kills him and then just gets, I don't know. Or if Creed was going to lose it.
Yeah.
Because, his friend is such a jerk. I don't know. Maybe he was going to do something to his family. And then Creed was just going to lose it on him and maybe super injure him or kill him.
Yeah.
But I think what they did was awesome. It's fantastic. Best way to do it. How at the end of the movie, they have that closure in the locker room. That scene was beautiful.
Yeah. I wanted more of that.
The movie is really quick.
It is, yeah.
I wish it was longer. It's only like an hour and a half long.
Yeah, I wish it was like a 2-hour movie. Like just
Yeah. Because it's like
I feel like they left a lot on the table.
it goes from like them kind of reconciling a little bit their brotherhood.
Yeah.
But then as soon as Dame wins,
Oh yeah.
it's just like,
Like what the heck?
okay, goodbye.
Yeah.
Yep, I set that up.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, and now I'm gonna fight you.
Yeah. That's probably how fast it feels to Adonis's mental.
Yeah.
Like learning that he did set all of this up.
Mhm.
He probably does like switch really fast to wanting to end him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think at the end, I think part of the fight was definitely like a metaphorical death to the name Creed for Adonis.
Mhm.
I mean, his pants literally say Adonis Creed now instead of just
Yeah.
Creed Johnson or Creed, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that scene where him and Rocky just had the fight where Adonis was saying, you know, do chemo, we're gonna do this, we're gonna fight this.
Mhm.
And I don't remember what Rocky said, but he freaking said something to hurt Adonis to make him leave.
Yeah.
And then he goes to see the music performance of his girl. And then the guy who like owns the building is like, hey yo, baby Creed.
Baby Creed.
And that just sets him off, right?
Yeah.
And then Damien is like, what's up, baby Creed? And
Yeah.
it's him shedding that self-image he had, or like that legacy that he's still dealing with
Mhm.
up until this movie. And that he literally, you know, like he wears the pants Adonis Creed. He transcends who his dad was to where he is his own person, because he is, you know, like better than his dad, at least in his eyes, as far as like not running away from things. Because I think that's how he feels, that his dad ran away from him and him being
Yep.
his son, right?
And that's what he
Through
does
dying
with
in the ring.
a lot in the third movie, was him running away.
Exactly. Because he did run away
Mhm.
from what happened, and a lot of that was just like it happening when he was so young, and
Yep.
not like necessarily having all the tools to deal with it in the way that would have been better to deal with. But he was a freaking kid when it happened, and just because it was the wrong thing to do, him just like kind of trying to push it away doesn't mean it's like you can necessarily blame him because he was so young when it happened.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, he did run away from that. He did run away from his friend, who was his only like real family for the longest time. Him stepping up and him fighting him, and then him talking to him afterwards, was him not running away anymore, obviously, and him becoming Adonis Creed, the man who doesn't run away, and not the son of Apollo Creed doing the same thing, running away,
Yeah.
just like Apollo did. In his mind. Again, I still haven't seen the other Rocky movies. I don't know. I'm not going to make any statements about Apollo until I've seen him in
Rocky.
in all the Rocky movies.
Is he in the second one? I know he's definitely in 3 and 4, but I don't remember if he's in the second one or not.
I'm pretty sure he's in the second one, because isn't it Rocky 1, Rocky loses, but he gets back up, and then in 2, I think he beats Apollo.
Yeah.
And then 3, I don't remember what happened.
They're like friends.
Yeah, they're like friends, yeah.
Yeah.
And then 4 sets off these movies,
Yep.
you know? But, yeah. Man, Jonathan Majors is so freaking good.
I know. He was
so
the
awesome.
perfect antagonist.
Yeah.
I mean, even from like one of his first lines where he's leaning on the car and he looks up and he's like, "Can I get an autograph?"
Yeah. No, he was so awesome.
Yeah.
So glad he didn't die, man. If he comes back, that would be sick.
Oh, it'd be awesome if
That
he
would
came
be
back.
so awesome. What's really awesome about his performance in Creed 3 is, again, like kind of like when you learn about behind the scenes of the production, like kind of people and where they draw from inspiration wise and whatnot. You can really elevate performances because these movies are so close to reality. Metaphorically, they're so one-to-one and like life in general. So it's really easy to relate back. Jonathan Majors was talking about how he really loved this role because the idea of playing a villain, it's not necessarily different from playing a hero or playing anyone else. It's just accessing a different part of yourself that everyone has, everyone goes through, everyone suppresses. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it was partly that, but the part that I really like is that he had an uncle, I believe, that went through a similar life as far as getting arrested, incarcerated, and then having to go through the life of the ankle monitor and like him. And he loved that man. And so he drew so much inspiration from that in his performance and in the character he was playing.
That's cool.
Yeah. And like I'll be honest, the first time I saw Creed 3, I haven't seen it again yet, but I've thought about it a lot and I've learned more about it and watched some scenes again and just, you know, thinking about it and whatnot. It's a lot better than I kind of gave it credit for the first time I watched it. Like we went and saw it together.
Yeah.
And you were saying it was your best, and I was like, and I like,
Oh, yeah.
and I was like, really?
classic
I thought
Nathan
it was
reaction.
Yeah, I thought it was the weakest. I was like, it felt a little too theatrical for me, and it's just because the others were so grounded. It was just such a big change.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I thought about it, and the more I, you know, learned about it, it's just because they changed some of the ways they presented things doesn't change how raw the story is and how connected it is to the other really raw stories that I loved. So
Yep.
yeah, I really want to see it again and kind of like, okay, I know it's a little theatrical, but let me just focus on the story. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's also cool because I grew up with a lot of animes. It was really cool to hear that for Michael B. Jordan's like, kind of debut in directing, that, you know, he also loved anime and he wanted to kind of like, you know, obviously, like I'm the same. I am the same way of like I could direct like a huge cool movie and I could inject any of like my inspirations into it and to kind of see that happen in like a different medium. I would do it in a heartbeat. So I was able to empathize with some of the choices in the movie a lot more because he loved anime, and so that's what made a lot of the fight in the end like more palatable for me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that before. I was just kind of going from Creed 1 and 2 to Creed 3, and it just felt weird to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know, when he now knowing that, you know, he was kind of like trying to put that flair onto it, it's cooler, and I can probably appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah. My favorite shot is probably the most anime-esque shot is whenever Dame punches him in the stomach and like all the sweat droplets like just lift off of his back.
Yep.
Super cool shot.
Straight up Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
And then my favorite, I love that shot, and I was like, oh, this is really cool, but this feels weird for a Creed movie. That's what I don't know, the two different dogs in me were fighting about that scene because it was freaking sick. You know what I mean? But I love the scene or the shot that was also very anime. Hit each other in the jaw at the same time.
That was a really well. Okay,
Love that shot.
What's so cool about that shot? And
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember because they go through the scene where it's like just them.
Yeah.
The audience is gone.
Yeah.
And then the only thing that I kind of didn't like was the prison bars showing up, and I remember telling you this.
Yeah.
I was fine with them fighting alone. I thought that was cool. I was
Yeah.
fine with all the other kind of fantastic things that were going on.
Yeah.
The prison bars was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But isn't that double like jaw punch whenever it brings them back to like reality?
Oh, is it?
I think so.
I think it
I'd have to
is.
rewatch it, but that's why I thought that
That's
was
sick.
really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
In that moment, it is just him and his brother. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like them visually showing that made sense. And this whole, he's feeling betrayed. He's feeling his guilt. He's feeling his anger for the way that his friend is treating him now. And so whenever they both deliver that punch, that brings him back to time to end this fight, you know?
I love that shot also because it's very anime, but it's also a callback to literally the ending of Rocky, right?
Yeah.
Is it the end of Rocky 1 or 2 where it's that fabled fight of Apollo and Rocky fighting in the ring that no one was watching and only they know the outcome of the fight too? Because
I think that's 3.
really,
But I don't know. I haven't seen them. But
Anyway.
they answer that.
yeah,
and-
they answer it in Creed 1, right?
Yeah.
The first one. It's such a great ending to a movie, and I don't even remember which one it was, but where they're both, about to start sparring, and the first shot that they both throw is them both landing a jaw shot on each other, and it's just a freeze frame, and you don't know who wins.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was a callback to Rocky, but also like a very cool anime thing to do. So
Yeah.
yeah. What do you think like was kind of Adonis's journey this time? One thing I could think of is maybe that ever since that happened, ever since Damien got arrested for him, essentially, and he kind of just like pushed it away and didn't go out and reach out to him. Also, what makes that really strong is that Apollo had other children, and Adonis does not have a close relationship with them. So
Cool.
Apollo has his wife, and he had 2 children with her, and you see them in like the Rocky movies, like 2 kids running around. He cheated on his wife, and that's who Adonis is with, a woman named Johnson. Adonis is not close to Apollo's first children, essentially. Right? I think that's why he feels like he owes so much to Damien, and he's definitely continuing to overcome the name still. You know what I mean? He's still building that mountain of experience of looking at himself and, you know, learning from himself as opposed to comparing himself to others. I think what happens is that he built so much. Well, from Creed to Creed 3, at the beginning of Creed 3 anyway, he has built so much. And he has become so much his own man, his own person, right? I mean, literally the gym has like that logo where it's like AC, right? And it's like Adonis Creed. He's still he's starting to step into his own name apart from Creed. But just like in the first movie when the building owner guy, I don't know what to call him, said baby Creed and that set him off. You know, Damien is saying the same thing. What was great about that scene, he said the same thing to him and it didn't set him off. And he assaulted him, and it didn't set him off. So it showed his insane growth, his insane work he's done on himself as far as like resilience, insecurities, right? That he was able to pick himself up from that, not engage, and go to try and figure himself out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that scene was super awesome. But more inwardly and more emotionally, Damien coming back at all brings up a lot of insecurities he had and a lot of things he needs to overcome and have reconciliation for internally, but also externally with him. Damien saying those things to him and kind of like treating him how he used to treat him is putting him back to the place he was when he was that kid.
Yeah.
And I think what Adonis did by pushing it all down is kind of like what we talked about similarly, like with Good Will Hunting, and what Will did as far as like what he went through is you basically like time lock the child into that place they were, and they're not able to grow, and you carry that around with you because it comes back out, right? Like with him, like his wife trying to be helpful and trying to like kind of get into it with him, like it's just going back to when he was a child, and when he was a child he had a lot of hate and anger and aggression and insecurity, right, that caused him to fight all the time. And so when she kind of starts probing in, he thought he overcame everything. He built so much, but all he did was build, and he never like, you know, took that kid by the hand and actually let the kid grow up to meet him where he is in the physical world, in reality. But internally, that kid hasn't moved on along with him. Right. And so when his wife is trying to help him with that, that kid just does what he knows what to do, and he just fights, and he gets angry, insecure. And this movie is him. He's overcome, you know, like him being a mistake. He's not going to be compared, you know, anymore, because he has become so much more his own thing. He's grown so much in so many ways. But this movie is just him finding another thing that he still needs to work on, and overcoming it. You know what I mean?
And that's what I was going to say.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm just saying that's what I think this one's about too.
Yeah. What about with Damien?
Oh, well, Damien's been thinking about his life as like a young adult the whole time he's been in prison.
Being ripped away from him.
Yeah.
Because he did a sacrificial thing.
Yeah. And he's been training and watching his little brother become what he wanted to become. And so when he comes out, he's going to get that. And I think he's just super overconfident, and he doesn't play by the rules whenever he is humbled at the end of the movie. And understanding that Adonis took a different route and has actually grown and hasn't just focused on his past. It's similar to Creed 2 with Ivan. He says it in the locker room at the end. He's like, I guess you did learn a few moves without me. And I don't think those are just boxing moves. I think those are
Yeah.
maturity, emotional closure. And that, yeah, I think that's what Dame's story is. And at the end of the movie, he's forgiven himself. He's forgiven what's his name? What's Creed's name? Adonis.
Yeah, yeah.
I said Adonis, and then I was like, wait. And I couldn't remember how
Donut.
A donut. Forgives a donut.
Forgives a donut. That's our first merch line. Forgives a donut.
I think he's able to grow. Maybe he's going to stay in the boxing world.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's going to try and work to become a trainer of sorts, because
Yeah.
he definitely knows it.
Mm-hmm.
He knows the right way and he knows the wrong way, but he chooses to do the wrong way. When he's training, he's doing everything right.
Yeah.
But then whenever he gets in the ring and it's, the first sparring session, right?
Yeah.
And then he just does what he can to overcome.
Yeah. Maybe that's an insecurity of his, that it's so much later in life that he doesn't have much time, so
I'm just going to break his arm.
yeah, he's relying on unsportsmanlike things, like not doing it the right way. Maybe in future installments he's going to learn to, no matter what point you are in your life, no matter what's happened, you don't have to resort to taking advantage of other people to be better. Maybe he's making everything more outward focused, like he he deserves this because of what happened to him, and so like that's why he can maybe justify fighting dirty and like hurting people. It's because he kind of thinking of it outwardly, like I deserve this, so like it's fine if I hurt people. But maybe he'll learn that to not take advantage of other people, but that all of the strength he wants and all of the success he wants is going to have to come from inward, him being strong enough on his own to get to that point, maybe.
Yeah.
And like maybe we got a glimpse of that at the end. Like him being humbled for sure, I think is like can be a catalyst for him to learn how to not hurt people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that could be super sick. I'm really excited to see what they do with the next one.
Me too. Another favorite scene of mine from Creed 3 is towards the beginning, whenever they're eating at that diner. And
Oh, yeah.
those French fries look so good. They look so good. That's all I was thinking about.
I love that scene because like you see them throughout the rest of the movie. They're in like the peak condition of their lives. It's like, and so what I noticed when they were in that scene is like they did not take an actual real bite of any of the food.
No, they
kept,
didn't.
like,
I noticed that, like, I don't even think they touched the burgers.
yeah, they didn't eat any of the food, and they like maybe ate a fry here or there, but they're like,
Yeah,
hey
they're
man,
just like,
we got a shirtless scene in 4 hours from here.
We're not touching these
We're not touching
potatoes
these right now. That was funny.
But the sound was there because like they would like pick up a fry.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, and there was definitely a few times Michael B. Jordan was like dipping in the ketchup, and, like eating it, and I was just like, it was so crispy. I was like, dang, it makes me want to get some fries after
sound
this.
design.
Man, I want to be a sound editor so I can just sit at a mic and just like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, what they're talking about is also great, but the food,
But the food though.
the food looked really good in that scene, man. Talk about anime inspired. You remember the food in anime always looks so good.
Oh, they better do that in the next movie. Just have like a super eating session or something.
Or like a whole scene where they're just like cooking.
Yeah.
It's like I haven't watched too much anime,
Uh-huh.
but that is what I look forward to.
Yeah.
It's the cooking
The
scene.
cooking scenes.
Fantastic.
I really liked his daughter as a character.
Yeah.
She was super interesting. I'm really excited to see what they do
Yes.
with her character.
You just reminded me of something.
What's up?
One of the first things that Damien talks about
Uh-huh.
with a donut is he's like, I've watched all your fights.
Yeah.
He says that line.
Uh-huh.
And then later in the movie, when he's talking to his daughter, she says the same thing.
Yeah.
She says, I've watched all your fights. He's like, where'd you learn that? She says, I've watched all your fights. And I wish, that's one thing I wish they kind of connected more, that parallel.
Yeah.
Because they both watched all his fights. And they both just see it for like the violence of it, right? because his daughter, punches the bully.
Yep.
And then Damien breaks the rules and
Yeah.
stuff. And so I wish they expanded more on that, because then he
I didn't notice that.
he does take the time to teach his daughter the proper way.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if a kid's just watching like a fight, they're not thinking like what's right and wrong, what are the rules.
Yeah.
They're just they just see punching.
Yeah.
And I think because of Damien's upbringing and spending a majority of his life in prison, that's all he sees with boxing. It's just the punching.
Yeah. The violence. The taking,
Sure.
Adonis, this whole time, it's been about the image. It's been about his life and overcoming things. And this is just like an avenue that makes the most sense for him to learn the most about himself. At least that's what the movies are portraying.
I wish they connected
That's
that
cool.
parallel more.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't even know they made that parallel.
Yeah.
But
No, but that's awesome.
they both say that line. I've watched all your fights.
Yep. I didn't notice that at all. That's super awesome. And also because of the position Adonis is in now. Like, I've watched all your fights. Well, he watched all of Rocky's fights.
Yep.
That was one of my favorite parts about the first movie too, where he was watching all the fights of his dad
Yeah.
and Rocky, but he was always playing the opposer to his dad. That was so cool. Did you notice that, like, on the projector? Like, he never imitated his dad. He imitated the people who were fighting his dad.
Yeah.
So sick.
Yep. Yep.
When he imitated the fights, he was imitating the people fighting his dad. And when his daughter imitated, she was imitating him. And that's already him being so much better. That's already him being not his father.
And
being
him taking
himself.
the time to work with his daughter.
Exactly. That's him
Yeah.
being what his dad
He's
was
like,
to
nope,
him.
we don't just punch people.
Uh-huh. Yep. We don't just die.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, I didn't even notice that. I didn't even think of that, but that's super awesome.
I'm very excited for Creed 4.
Yeah.
Hopefully that happens. Hopefully Jonathan Majors is in it. Hopefully his daughter's grown quite a bit.
And they can do more with the character. Do you think he's going to keep fighting? He's probably going to have to keep fighting.
I know. That's what I was
He's
thinking
retired.
about. He's retired and he came back, and then
He's going to keep coming back.
I know.
I
I
don't
wish
know.
that maybe we could
Yeah.
focus on something else, but it would be really difficult not to have him fight,
Yeah, it would be.
It would almost need to be like a separate franchise.
Yeah.
Where he just is like the Rocky character.
Yeah.
I guess we just need to look at why did Rocky keep fighting? I mean, I guess Creed
'Cause
can
he
keep
did-
coming
yeah.
back. Someone can challenge him. Maybe Rocky's gonna challenge him.
Oh, Rocky's iconic, climbing up the steps.
Yeah.
Adonis had that in the third movie, which I really liked, by him running up to the top of the Hollywood sign.
Yes.
Because that used to be his name.
Yes.
Before he became Creed, right? He was Hollywood Adonis Johnson. That was cool symbolism. I like that a lot.
Yeah, his training scene in that one was really cool.
And oh my gosh, I loved his training scene in the second one.
Yeah.
That was crazy when he went out to the desert and what was it? He was pulling planes and
Yeah.
stuff.
And he pulled a plane in Creed 3 too.
Yeah. In the second one, it was just him just training the hardest he's ever come to become the best version of himself he's ever become, right? And in the third one, he was the best for a while, and then he retired because he's like, I'm gonna not break every bone in my body. But also, what he was overcoming in the training for Creed 3, he was addressing, the child that got, he pushed down for so long, and so it was essentially that kid, kind of learning how to stand up for himself and fight, kind of growing up to the same point he had grown up to in every other way. And I think that's why it was so hard for him for so long in the training, where he just he doesn't got it right now, or when Drago is like, I don't know, no, this is not good, I don't want to keep fighting you. And then Adonis just keeps saying, no, fight. That scene was so hard to watch in a good way, and I think it was because it was kind of that insecure kid fighting and growing instead of who Adonis has become in every other way.
Yeah.
So I really like the training scene in that one for that reason.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Great trilogy.
Great trilogy. Yeah. Great trilogy so far. There will probably be more.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Hope it becomes a quad.
Quad. or a
Or a Quinn.
quad, a Quinn, or a sex.